You see on the left-hand side where it mentions Regal Oaks Phase 2B, Horseshoe and Bruce drives, and Continental Old Orchard drives. So we're looking at about 130, 140 customers from these projects, or close to about 10% of the system, that those customers will not have to pay those tap fees, and that involves a substantial amount of cost to run those lines. There we're looking at about $5 million of those estimated costs to run the lines to those projects, and that's something that, again, Pennsylvania American Water will be implementing. The elimination of system risk. Again, we sort of touched on this already a little bit. And point number two, we just lay out a couple of the risks, the unfunded mandates from regulatory agencies such as DEP and EPA. They seem to be coming more and more that we see across the Commonwealth of these unfunded mandates, which typically cost a lot of money, put a lot of stress on the budgets of the various utility systems that we've seen, the municipal utility systems. There's the risk of system failure, whether it's a portion of the system, a component of the system, or overall some major infrastructure replacement that may be needed. The township is looking to eliminate that risk, basically shift that burden to another very well qualified operator that can handle that situation. There's ongoing capital risk with the Pottstown Borough Authority. I think everyone knows that the system that the township has been exploring to sell that it owns is just a collection system, basically just the pipes under the ground that ultimately flows, the waste flows to the Pottstown Borough Authority for treatment. Treatment plants are costly to upkeep and keep them running in good order, and so there's capital that's needed. And those risks are kind of unknown. And so that's another reason that the township was looking to shed that risk. And from a financial perspective, point three kind of gives the sort of shows the picture that with those various risks, if the township keeps the system, will be spread over the 1,600 customers or some of the new ones as well that connect here in the future, as opposed to if those kind of issues do occur, a very well qualified company like Pennsylvania American Water, as we heard from Bernie, has over almost 750,000 customers between its wastewater and water customers, that is able to absorb those costs a little bit more efficiently than Upper Pottsgrove Township within the confines of its borders. There's also, kind of in regards to that point number four, the township will also be eliminating the risk related to its employees. So currently right now, the employees that handle the sewer issues with the township wear multiple hats and spend their time doing other things during the day as well, and are not able to dedicate their time solely to the sewer operation. So again, now by selling to an experienced operator, the township residents will have employees that are solely dedicated to make sure that the system stays in good working order. Point number six, so pages 12 and 13 focus on that issue with the fee reduction with reasonable future rates. So page 12 is a historical perspective of the sewer rates going back to the late 1970s. And as I had mentioned before, there were a couple times during there where there's some substantial increases that the ratepayers kind of saw a pretty significant increase in rates. Over that time period, the rate increases averaged a little over 6%. So that just kind of gives a historical view of what the average customer increase looked like during that time period. Ben, next slide. So going forward, so both the township, along the township meaning its internal and external team, completed some future rate modeling, kind of looking forward if the township kept its system, and also during the RFP process itself, is one of the requirements of submitting the proposal. The bidders were also asked to supply indicative or estimated sewer rates for the foreseeable future. And again, these are just estimated rates. These are not set in stone. Ultimately, the PUC has the sole jurisdiction of setting the rates, but sort of based on some of the models we see here in the chart, again, township models and PA American Water models, you get a sense of what the rate trajectory kind of looks like. And so the green line are the estimated sewer fees, assuming American Water ownership, and the blue line represents estimated sewer fees plus the real estate tax increase from the $4 million of municipal upgrades that need to happen to the buildings to give kind of a fair comparison of the impact. And again, you can kind of see the way things look going forward. If you look in the blue box, right, kind of in the left of that, where it says estimated savings to the homeowner by selling during this time period, basically 2021 through 2028, is almost $1,300. That's basically quantifying the difference between the blue line and the green line. Now, what this what this graph does not show is over on the right-hand side, the additional benefits. Again, that it's just too hard to show, that we'd already mentioned, freeing up some of the budget capacity by paying off some of the other non-sewer related debt and funding the pension plan. This kind of, again, it's too hard to put on a chart, but by freeing up basically this $441,000 allows the township to fund future operations and future projects while better managing the overall need for tax increases. I know we talked about it before, some of that debt obviously is related to the general fund. Some of it's related to the open space fund. But again, it still allows the township more flexibility overall to accumulate, more open space funds if that's the decision it wants to go. It just provides more flexibility. And especially in times like this that we're experiencing right now, kind of the more budget flexibility the township has, I think the better it's able to manage any kind of tax burden and financial burdens for its residents. Next slide, Ben. Let's see, Bernie, would you like to talk a little bit more about the connection fee reduction?
Certainly. Thank you, Scott. So, yeah, so in this slide, we're focusing on the connection. You call it a tapping fee. We call it a capacity reservation fee for Pennsylvania American. But just one of the other differences of ownership by Pennsylvania American is, our utility rates are, again, set by the PUC, but there's also we have a difference in the manner in which we charge for or don't charge for new customers connecting to the system. So for our wastewater system, when extensions are made, or if there's an existing home in front of an existing wastewater line that wants to connect, we do not charge a tap-in fee. So this would be for an existing home or a business, anything that has an occupancy permit and wanted to connect, there's no tap-in fee. So whereas the township currently has a tap-in fee of approximately $5,447, Pennsylvania American has, that would be zero for existing homes and businesses. So, the projects listed above that Pennsylvania American will be stepping into, Regal Oaks Phase 2, Horseshoe and Bruce, Continental and Orchard Drives. When lines are extended and customers connect, there will be no connection fee. Now, there is a capacity reservation fee that we have in our tariff. This is for new homes. So these would be newly constructed homes or new businesses. Think of like developers, new developments. When those systems come online, there is a $4,000 per-EDU fee charged for those systems. However, there is no charge for the, as I mentioned, we call them bona fide service applicants. That would be the existing homes or businesses. So beyond the projects listed in the above for the 537 plan, our tariff also has a PC formula in it that calculates the amount of investment that Pennsylvania American can make toward an extension of service. So for our wastewater tariff, the current calculation produces an outcome where Pennsylvania American will invest $15,000 toward the cost of an extension of the wastewater line. If there were say 10 folks along a road where was a need for wastewater, and those 10 folks agreed to tap in. Pennsylvania American would apply their $15,000 fee times 10 to produce a $150,000 investment. And if that investment covered the cost, then we would extend the line, and then we would also not charge a tap-in fee when the residents did connect. Now, if there's a business or a bigger user that has generates a larger revenue stream, we have a different formula that calculates the amount of investment based on the revenue, but it's typically generates a higher investment amount because there's a higher amount of revenue involved. So we do want to explain that difference between, the existing set, rules within the township and the way it would work under Pennsylvania America. We've seen this as an advantage to communities, particularly communities that have areas of the municipality that want or need wastewater service, but heretofore have not had the financial ability to extend service in a meaningful way. So we do see this brings a pretty significant option to the table. And when we do, just a note on extending of service, we work within the municipality. We will work, we can only provide service where we have a certificate of public convenience to serve, which we'll get from the Public Utility Commission. But once we have it, we have an obligation to serve. But we'll work with the community. On the last call, there was a question as to whether we'd, sit down with the community residents, to outline areas where there may be need for additional wastewater. We're certainly willing, and we do that as, part of what our service we provide. So, again, an additional optionality brought to the table under Pennsylvania American ownership. Thanks, Scott.
All right, thanks, Bernie. So slide 15 basically takes those 7 main points that we heard a little bit more detail about here, and now just sort of puts them all in a matrix form. So on the left-hand side are, again, the 7 key points from retiring debt all the way down to the tap fee. Then we have the kind of the keep the system column and sell the system column. And we just have a note or two in each one of those. And so, again, just to reiterate kind of each point that the township has kind of been considering and helping them make their decision, or at least consider their decision. Point number 1, as far as retiring the debt of about $8.4 million, obviously if the system is kept, the township continues to pay that debt burden. If the system is sold, that $8.4 million of debt burden will no longer exist. The unfunded pension liability, if the system is kept, that $100,000 or more of additional cost to the general fund will continue, versus if the system is sold, there will be no unfunded pension, or that payment will no longer exist in the township's budget. So about $100,000 of freed up expenses. Point number 3, the deteriorating infrastructure, kind of the borrowing of that, or utilizing $4 million to complete some of the projects with the municipal buildings. If the system's kept, that's going to result in a borrowing. Debt service will be attributable to that, which will impact the general fund to the tune of about $285,000 per year. If the system is sold, $4 million of the proceeds from the sale of the system will go towards those projects instead of entertaining any kind of borrowing. Point number 4, eliminating the sewer capital project spending, keeping the system. The models are incorporating or basically showing that the township would need to incur additional debt on the sewer side to fund some of these projects to the tune of between $3 and $4 million here in the near term, in addition to utilizing a large amount of its sewer reserve cash coming from tap fees and other sources. So again, keeping the system, additional debt burden will be incurred. Selling the system, obviously that burden is shifted to the new buyer, so there will be none. Point number 5, eliminating the system risk and preventive maintenance. So right now in the models going forward, if the township kept the system, there'd be about $100,000 or so per year of cost to the sewer fund for various maintenance and other kind of overall risk that should be budgeted for. If the system is sold, Pennsylvania American Water will assume all those risks related to some of those points that we had meant before, and just the general upkeep and maintenance of the system. The sewer fee reduction, you can see there, if you keep the system, what the projected rates look like for the next couple of years under township ownership, basically going from 900 to 940 per year for the selling the system. Again, estimated rates ultimately would need to be set by the PUC, but it just kind of gives you a general idea that under the Pennsylvania American ownership, it'd be somewhere around 780 in the beginning for the first couple of years, and then going up to the higher $800 per year during this time period. And as far as the tap fee system is kept, the township will continue to charge its $5,447. That maybe go up as well over time, like it has in the past. For selling the system, certain of those projects would not have any tap fees that we already heard about from Bernie. So again, this just kind of lays everything out side by side, again, to help make a decision one way or another. And lastly, before we turn it back over to the township to accept questions, again, just as a general wrap up, this has been going on for well over a year, about a year and a half since a lot of the professionals have been involved, longer than that. Within the township, a very extensive due diligence process. We've analyzed all the different reasons for selling the system, and if the sewer system would be sold, could those goals be achieved? And I think we feel confident that with the bid that Pennsylvania American Water put up of $13.75 million, that those goals can be achieved, that the township had set out from the onset. If approved, this competitive process not only brought forth competitive rates and competitive indicative rates and a very competitive purchase price, but also through the vetting process brought in a very good and experienced regulated sewer operator. Based on sort of what we've seen, what we've kind of heard during some of these presentations, that there's a high likelihood that these estimated future rate increases in the near term will be similar, if not even lower, than the township's historical rate increases. Again, ultimately PUC will need to set those rates under the new ownership regime. And again, lastly, in addition to, it's very important to be selling this to an experienced operator. I think we've talked in some of the meetings about the customer service and the other advantages of having a well-qualified operator like PA American, that just in general, by freeing up these additional cash flows, allows the township to better prepare for the future needs of the rising cost and other infrastructure needs of the township. So with that, Michelle, I'll turn it back to you and go to the question session.
Okay, Michelle, if you would please take it over. For this evening, we had a really nice meeting on Tuesday, really a civil meeting. So tonight, if you just ask your questions, and the comments will come up on Monday. So if you would like to go ahead and ask 2 or 3 tonight, that would be great. Michelle will talk a little bit about how she's been answering and how our staff's been answering the other questions that have been coming over email. We may have a little bit of a timing issue with some of the telephonic ones, because those will come in by email, and I didn't see exactly how many folks we had on telephone, but Michelle's worked all those up, done a lot of good work with that. So Michelle, with that, if you would please.
Yeah, so I just want to advise everyone that most of the answers or most of the questions that have been posed via email up to this point have been answered, and those question and answers are posted both on our website, and then there's a link on our Facebook page to get to the website for those question and answers. So for tonight's question and answer session, what we would ask is that if you've already submitted questions via email, they most likely have been answered. So we ask you to refer to our website and not ask the same questions again, to a courtesy to other residents who may have questions that haven't been answered. And also, if for those that are on the telephone, if for some reason we don't get to you this evening, we would ask also that you submit your questions via email as well. There are some questions that were submitted that have not yet been answered, but I am working very hard to try to get those answered and hopefully posted either tomorrow or no later than Monday morning. So with that, if you have a question, you can raise your hand as was instructed in the beginning of the meeting, and we'll try our best to get through everyone's questions this evening.
Hey, could I ask Scott a couple questions?
Let's let the residents first.
Okay.
All right, so I have a Thomas Shanley.
Yes.
Shanley,
Yeah, I own a property at Mock and Yarnell Roads. It's not sewered yet. I have two questions, basically. Number one, what's the chances that area is going to be sewered sometime after this sale, or whether the sale goes through or not? And the second question is, I was trying to sell the property. I'm retired. I'm trying to sell that property. I haven't rented at this time as the whole house. And I'm having trouble selling it because the banks really don't want to lend money until they have a certificate that the existing tile field sewer system is adequate. I started getting the engineering work done to do that. Of course, I'm on hold right now because of the pandemic. Montgomery County is not doing any testing on soil or anything like that, so I can't move forward with the project. I'm just wondering if you can tell me, what can I tell my prospective buyers? What can I tell, people that come around looking at the property once I put it up for sale about chances they'll be sewered and they may have to pay a sewer fee in the future?
so I would say from a township's perspective, if the township were to not sell the sewer system, that area is not slated to obtain sewer under the Act 537 plan at this time. So I would say there's no plan to run public sewer to that area.
Okay.
If the system does sell, I would defer to Bernie from PA American Water to answer the procedure to get sewer to areas that are not already outlined in the Act 537 plan.
Yeah, sure, Michelle. So, Mr. Shanley, I do apologize. I'm not as familiar with the area yet relative to where you are or where sewer would need to be extended to. But generally, from a process perspective, we'd sit down with you. We'd take a look at where the existing mains are at, where you're at. We have a GIS group that knows topography. We'd be able to come up with like a cost estimate that would be what we believe it would cost to run the wastewater line to your area. We would incorporate that investment I talked about, the company's investment amount toward what it would cost, and then we would work with you and or any other residents in the area to determine if we could make a project work from an investment standpoint.
Gotcha. Understandable. All right.
All right. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions here. Bear with me, there's lots of people online. So I don't see any other hands up for questions, Trace. I don't know if you want me to go to the, there's one. I got one, hold on. Carol Tillman, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple. So what happens if you choose not to join this? Once it goes private, am I going to have choice to change up my sewer person or company, like I do for trash, like I do for electric, like I do for phones and stuff like that?
I don't think I heard the question. I don't know if anybody else did.
Anybody understand?
I couldn't hear it. I think he's asking, since he has a choice of electric and a choice for telephone, how come is he going to have a choice for sewer? He's saying he gets to pick other companies and he wants to pick a sewer company.
Well, I don't think he'd be able to do that whether the township kept the sewer system or sold it. Am I correct?
Right.
Somebody, Chuck?
You're correct, Michelle. Obviously, it's a township-provided service or it's a service provided by a regulated public utility. Obviously, there's not other entities that provide sewer based upon the infrastructure that's required to do that in the capital expenditure. So I think it's either the township or a regulated utility.
Okay. One other question is, what has anybody had any concern? I read that this company had a G rating and a Better Business Bureau. Does that raise the red flag with anybody in the commission?
Bernie, I think what he said, he was asking about the Better Business rating that the company had. Can you,
Yeah,
Bernie, can you?
I can address that. Yeah, so couple things. So I think what you're referring to, there was an article published earlier this week, and a question was raised about a rating from the Bureau of Better Business. They apparently had a rating out for Pennsylvania American as a D- rating, and it was tied to a lack of response to questions from businesses that in the area that they had covered relative to some service issues that were communicated. So I'll address this in two manners, but I did want to be specific about this BBB rating. So this was something that did catch my attention. I wasn't familiar with it, but we immediately had discussions with our customer service and customer advocacy group who were aware of it. But what they uncovered was that the communication information that we had with that bureau was old, that we were getting information sent to places that no longer exists, and some of the information was actually going into a junk file. Once we realized that earlier this week, we immediately called the BBB. There were approximately 18 events that didn't go answered as a result of what I just talked about. So we 7 from this year and 11 from last year. The company immediately responded to the 7, and in the following day we responded to the 11. We've worked these responses out with the BBB analysts such that every one of them have been responded to, and furthermore we've fixed the deficiencies in the process relative to communication. On another note, those entities, BBB, they're important entities, but one of the differences is, we're again regulated by the PUC for customer issues. So in all likelihood, those types of issues would have been sent to the PUC, through which we have a process to work those. If they come in as a complaint or an inquiry, we'll work with the respondent. We'll work through the PUC process to try to resolve it. If it doesn't get resolved, it can go through other regulatory means. So, the manner in which those and similar types of complaints are addressed is usually through the PUC. But we do appreciate, actually, at the end of the day, that this was raised because we weren't aware that there was that issue involved. So we feel we've corrected that and we're ready to move on.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that response. Can I also ask one other question? Because I've been here since early 2000, and Regal Oaks, I live in Regal Oaks, and that originally was private, and the owner failed, and the township then had to take it over. If for some reason this company were to go bankrupt, would the township once again be on the hook? And would we be on the hook to make any corrective actions? Because in the previous failure, we had Jim sewage spilling into Clover's Run, which is then polluting all the water that we drink. What is the liability or potential liability on the township if for some reason this company were to fail either in their due diligence, their responsibility, or just go under?
Bernie, did you hear that?
Yeah, I do. So I think what I'm understanding is that at one point there was a separate wastewater treatment system that served the Regal Oaks area.
Correct.
And we've run into this a lot, actually, across Pennsylvania. We'll come into situations where a developer may have gone into business and stood up a water or wastewater system and then transferred it to a homeowners association. And what happens over time is that, they're frankly not water or wastewater operators, and those systems, they don't have the investment, they're not run properly, and they run into regulatory issues, and it has a very significant impact on the value of the homes and the communities. There's dozens of instances where Pennsylvania American has actually come in and stepped into those situations and made the investments and made them whole. As a matter of fact, under the PUC, there are certain there's a Section 507 requirement for large utilities like ours to actually step into and take over these systems. And sometimes the PUC will tell us to come in and take over a system. So we're familiar with what's happened in similar instances. In regard to us leaving, we as a PUC regulated entity will have a certificate of public convenience, which basically means we have a burden to provide service. So in those areas, the PUC will essentially make us, if that were ever to be the case, make the provider provide adequate service. I can tell you that as the state's largest water and wastewater system, you're not going to run into that situation with Pennsylvania American. That's the business we're in, and we don't plan on abandoning any of our systems, nor could we if we even wanted to under PUC regulation.
Okay, thank you. I got two more questions, and they're specific to the Board of Commissioners. Did anybody look at another way of reducing the pension fund gap? A. And the second question then is, if we go forward with this, and we now have closed the open space deficit for outstanding loans, will you eliminate that tax, or will you be reducing it? Because I thought that tax was specific just to pay for open space.
Yeah, can I take that question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, you're correct about the proceeds of the earned income tax that's designated for open space. So while I can't answer how the commissioners will spend or what they'll do with that tax, there are limitations in the use of those earned income tax funds, limited to acquisition of open space, pay down of debt for acquisition of open space, consultant fees in the acquisition, and based upon the state law amendment of a few years back, 25% of the annual proceeds can be used towards maintenance. So those are restricted funds, and they have to be used in those categories.
Okay, so if the fund then exceeds what our actual need is because we paid off the debt on that, then where do those funds go?
If the debt were paid off, any funds raised from the tax would have to go into a restricted account to be used for those items I indicated: purchase of open space, maintenance, or fees associated with purchase of open space.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's see if we got anybody else here. I don't see anybody else with their hand up. Trace up. Yep, here we go. Oh, no, don't do that. I have Ro.
Hello, it's Stephanie Rowe.
Hi, Stephanie.
How are you all tonight?
Good, good.
Thank you for taking my questions. I have a couple questions, if that's all right. So if the one taxpayer said that Montgomery County right now isn't testing any soil or doing anything. I saw today that the courts are not doing anything till May 31st. I'm curious, and this is my question, does the bid expire by April 20th? Was there only the 30 days, or is there a longer time? Is that the reason why we need to move so quickly on this? I understand this has been in the process for a long time, but the bid just came in on March 20th. So why does it have to go to a vote in light of all the things and everything that's being shut down? Weddings, graduations, vacations, all these things are stopping because of what's going on in our world right now. Why are we moving so quickly? I just need to understand more than that's the date we agreed on. Is there a reason why we need to do this? Like, bid's going to expire, we're going to lose this great offer. I mean, I just need help understanding that.
Michelle, you want to go through the process we went to in advertising and what we put
No,
forward?
I don't need the process and all that. I understand that. My question is, and this is actually for you as the commissioners, not PFM or Bernie or anyone else, is why does this need to be done right now? That's just my question for commissioners.
Well, from my standpoint, I think that we've done enough due diligence, way above and beyond what we actually would have done. We practiced doing these meetings, putting that forward. We want to get this in play because, as you saw, 9 months to 12 just to go through the PUC process, and we're still running through the closing process in between where we're at right now.
Okay, you're not answering my question though. My question is if you have governments that are closing down, you have judicial systems that are closing down, you have all these things that are stopping because of what's going on in our world. I understand that you've gone through all this due diligence, everything that's happened to this point, but we're in a new normal right now.
Well, I think we can do it. I think we can process through this. I don't think the other places you mentioned being closed, we put process into place so we can action this. And that's not to say that, you know, we're going through the comments on Monday, go through the whole process of voting. All the commissioners can state their points, but we need to put that on the table. Other commissioners, certainly you can join in on this, but that's my understanding of how the best way to do that would be.
Well,
Could I hear?
I'll join in. I asked last week about when the date for the expiration of the bids are, and I still never got an answer.
And I think I alluded to that at the beginning of the meeting, that there is a list of questions that haven't been answered that we're hopeful to have answers by the end of day tomorrow.
I actually am having trouble that we have 22 staff members on this call, that lawyers, PFM, and none of them have an answer to that simple question, except last time I got it 60 to 90 days usually.
We have a date. It's June 30th.
Thank you.
Okay, if I can just mention one thing. My understanding as one of the commissioners is that we're going to start now the process. If we vote on Monday, we still have 9 to 12 months until of more exploration until everything finally closes. That gives us quite a lot of time to explore other things. And have a lot more of our questions answered also. We're all sitting here too, looking at all this information and still digesting it. I've looked at it, of course, a lot longer than most of the public has. But it's not like we vote on Monday and Tuesday morning, we have American Water doing our water system. There is still a rather lengthy process to go. So I just don't see why we can't move on this if we think it's actually a feasible project.
Thanks, Kathy.
I could just say, you know, government has not shut down. There are certain elements of government that have either closed or operating on a modified arrangement. There are many government entities in Pennsylvania that are continuing to do business, that are approving bond issues, that are doing all the things necessary to operate. They're doing it with a, you know, obviously modified arrangements, including meetings of this type using Zoom. As a matter of fact, the U.S. Supreme Court just announced that it's going to start holding oral arguments using Zoom, so they're going to continue doing business. So while there are many kinds of events that involve social gatherings that are being canceled or just postponed indefinitely, I think most government entities in Pennsylvania are continuing to operate and do business. And there's a lot of business that has to be done for the public safety and welfare of the residents.
Would you consider this a public safety and welfare issue though? Would you consider this essential that it has to be done right at this moment?
Well, that's not for me to determine. I'm the counsel to the township, and that's a decision that the board makes. But I think, you know, anything involving sewer, water, other services that are provided to residents of a township, you know, relate to the health and safety and also the economic welfare of the residents is also an important issue. We have Liz Havey and I are working on another transaction for Township in Montgomery County as it's issuing a new bond in order to refinance existing debt and lower their interest cost.
Okay.
You know, I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
and I'll just make a point that our sewer committee chairman made to us today that we kind of maybe didn't think about, is that a properly and efficiently operated public sewer collection and treatment system does help to protect the health and safety of the entire community, and all residents enjoy the benefits of having these systems in place. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
you're welcome. Okay, I have one more. Weiss?
Yeah, Stephanie actually asked most of my questions, but just to like second the same exact questions that she asked, like it just feels like it's rushed. And if we have 2 months to hold on a decision where, once again, like on Tuesday night, we had more people on the call, which was great, but here we have 48 and somebody just said about 20 something of them as staff members. So, you know, Mr. Feller, you made the comment that so many other government things are happening, but again, in 2 months, what's the rush where you get more people to kind of sit on this? I don't know if is this PowerPoint public to people?
Yes.
My apologies. I have not looked because I've been on the call, so I haven't really looked for it. But
Yeah,
it's
not publicized. Let me rephrase that. It's not publicized, but if you request a copy, you can obtain a copy. It is
but
not.
I mean, why not? Like, why not post it so people can actually see it? If people aren't coming on the call, which clearly they're not, like I said, there's 48 participants tonight, let people take a look at it. It feels like to me, and Michelle, you know that I respect you 100%. Like,
Oh yeah,
you're on a different level for me. So this is not against you because I adore you, but
thank you.
just like, again, like it feels very, sorry, my kids are running rampant singing to the Disney sing along on ABC right now. But it just feels like, again, it feels like it's rushed, and it feels like a lot of people really, like, there's new people on this call tonight that haven't been on the call. And yes, there's government things that are happening, but I'm still confused as to why the push to get it done right now. Like, let people look at these, because I'm seeing people speak and I don't remember who everybody is. And I wish that I could like click back on the PowerPoint and see who's on it and who's who again, because I'm not quite sure. And I can't do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like a little bit more time. This is getting voted on by the 20th, and it feels like everybody kind of already has their decision made. And it's like, who cares? Because it's going to fall back on the township members who are showing up and kind of being pushed to the side at this point because the decision feels like it's already been made.
What I would disagree with you saying that the township folks are pushed aside, but I think you heard everybody's statement on what we're saying. But to your point on the PowerPoint slides, yes, I think you should get a copy of those. And I think also Michelle's been trying to look for ways to post those things is on our website.
Yeah, I definitely think it should be posted for people to look at.
Yeah, we'll definitely try to get that posted tomorrow. Just you know, not that we're making an excuse, but we were short-staffed for the last month because one of our administrative staff decided not to come to work with the whole COVID-19, and there's nothing we could do about that. So we were limited staff for a while, and I've been focusing solely on this sewer stuff, and I've been inundated, and I can tell you that I probably spent 90% of my time on this. So I apologize that we didn't think to post the PowerPoint, but we will certainly get that up first thing tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I just think that would be helpful for people to be able to look back and see it, because there was, even tonight, like, I feel like the more that I'm learning, the more that I'm reading, the more I'm understanding. And I just think like having it there, people like me who want to see it visually and hear it, it would be beneficial.
Yeah, so if you just want to, even before she posts it, if you want to just go ahead and send Michelle an email, she can certainly attach that and send it back to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yep, I could certainly do that.
Thanks, Michelle. Keep working hard, girl.
Thank you.
To give everybody some perspective, lots of townships do this. This is nothing out of the realm of, this is not an unusual thing. And lots of townships don't hold for informational meetings. They just have one or two. So, I think that the township commissioners here have added in meetings after meetings to make sure that the public can get their questions asked.
Yeah, and again, I'll just reiterate that, you know, if for some reason I did miss answering your email questions or you don't see them posted, please give me a call on the phone and let me know and remind me either that or send them again, because I get about 100 emails a day, and I will say that sometimes I do overlook them. So
Very good. Who we have next, Michelle?
I don't think we have, are we limited to residents and taxpayers, correct?
Yeah, we're limited to residents. So I think since we're at 8:30, why don't you try a couple of they may just
phone ones?
yeah, the telephone and see if they can.
Yep, let me see if I can get those. So
I'll let Martin ask.
I have phone number
Won't let him ask.
610-310.
I don't know why. He won't let him
He's a
ask.
resident.
He won't let
Hello?
him ask.
Hello?
Seriously.
I have a phone number
He's a
610-310-46.
resident.
Do you have any questions?
Seriously. Is that what he said? He actually said, I'm not letting anybody else ask.
He won't let anybody else ask.
Did we forget to mute somebody?
Says who? Says who?
I don't know who I didn't mute. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go to the next one. I have a phone number 610-563-7672.
Because they wanted to try to me ask questions, and I don't want to ask any questions.
Why
Wasting
do
my
you
time.
ask them?
They're just unmuting everybody.
Okay, I'm not sure what's happening here. Why I got people, okay. So
Which one you on, Michelle?
610-563-7672. Do you have any questions? I guess not. Okay.
Michelle,
Yes.
it's Kathy. I see Nicole Mack is raising her hand. I see her on video.
Okay, I didn't see her. Let me see if I can find her. You got her, Ben?
No, I don't.
I can unmute myself.
Whoa.
Hi, my name's Nicole Matz. I live on Concord Drive. I'm a resident. I would actually really be interested to have the questions from Martin to be asked and answered.
Yeah, since we asked the rest of those, I'll give Martin some time. Just be reminded, the commissioners are going to go into the deep debate on Monday.
I'm aware, but I am still. I hope that there's time. I was participated in another meeting where he wasn't granted time, and I'm very interested to hear the questions.
Okay, the only thing I will say, if there are any of the questions that were already emailed by Commissioner Schreiber, that we not ask those questions as we're working on getting answers to those, Trace,
Okay, that's fine.
for sake of
Okay,
time.
so are there any more resident you don't see any more hands up, do you?
No, I don't. And I think I
Okay,
hit
so-
everybody that was on a phone.
So, Martin, if you want to ask, you said you want to ask Scott a question?
Yeah, I have some questions on like slide 7. I think Darrell Tillman hit it. The open space of $247,000. And it makes it look like 341,000 is going to be going in the general fund, and we know that if we pay off all the debt, we're only going to
What do you
get.
say? Right now, we're starting to get into a debate about that. That's why I was saying that the questions would be.
So the question is, Scott,
Scott explained it to you, but you'll
What?
see each one of those goes to different funds. So Scott, if you want to.
Well, I just want to add too, I don't think we're saying that it's going to the general fund here. We're just saying it's getting freed up. So, I mean, obviously the open space fund we've heard is going to be freed up and can be used for only open space needs. But I don't
it
think.
only leaves $100,000 left. So that slide's kind of a little misleading to the township.
Well,
residents.
no, it still frees it up, Martin, right? I mean, it still frees it up. It doesn't say it frees it up for general fund.
Right, it just says annual reduction in township expenses.
So this frees it up. So the commissioners are not being asked to decide on exactly what to do with the open space fund now, but by retiring the debt, basically the 2.1 million of debt for the open space, there's no longer any debt service. So the income, the revenue that the earned income tax provides will now, the township has flexibility to, let's just say that money's going to accumulate on an annual basis, that the board, if it wishes to keep the tax the way it is, can redeploy those new funds for other purposes, meaning kind of leverage that money that's coming off the tax to provide for more open space opportunities purchasing other land. So it gives more flexibility for the open space fund.
Okay. Scott, yeah, we were just trying to get the benefit, not necessarily where the benefit goes, but we were just trying to get the benefit.
Okay. That's fair enough. On slide 9, it talks about, the debt and the $183, figure $200 per household. And I take it you guys looked at the budget to come up with that?
As far as what the value?
No, the budget, our 2020 budget? No?
No, that's if we borrow $4 million for our infrastructure projects, what the annual debt service would be.
I understand that, but I also understand that we have 120,000 or so in maintenance and repairs of the buildings this year. Is that
Yeah,
not correct?
that's budgeted in the budget for 2020.
Correct. So we wouldn't have to borrow another 120,000 because it would be sitting there, because if we built new buildings.
No, we'd have to borrow 4 million.
Yeah, this
So
is
if you
4
take
million.
off
So
the
it's 285,000.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we would borrow 4
285,000.
million. However, we wouldn't have to borrow. We wouldn't have to raise the taxes as high because we'd have 120,000. Correct?
That 120,000, I don't want to speak for Michelle, but that 120,000 for budget for 2020 is a one-time expense. It's not an ongoing. It's not an ongoing expense.
Okay.
The debt service is.
Correct.
Right. Okay. And Kathy brought up a point that, even though we're planning to vote on Monday, it's still a 9 to 12 month process, but this vote is the one that counts, right? There's no turning back after the sale on Monday.
Right. I think, I don't want to speak for Kathy, but I think maybe what she meant was that the kind of the ultimate use of the proceeds, the township has 9 to 12 months to sort of vet that, because again, if the transaction closes, if it's voted by a majority vote next Monday and then it does, close, we have 9 to 12 months to look at exactly how these proceeds will be redeployed. We talked about what sort of the plan is at the moment, but there could be more discussions during that time period.
Okay. Bernie,
Right. Monday's the vote. Monday is the approval. You're right.
right. So there's no turning back after Monday if this goes through to sell. No matter. Okay. Bernie brought up a point that sometimes they're asked to take over failing systems. And, I'm sure PA American Water has to put money into those systems. Does that get spread out around the ratepayers then at that point?
Yeah, like any investment we make under single tariff pricing, the rates are, any capital investment, any expense, that all goes into the equation that determines rates for rate making purposes.
So the same thing that happened in Upper Pottsgrove many years ago with them being forced to take over Regal Oaks, it could happen in Erie, Pennsylvania, that you're asked to take over, or Mercer, Pennsylvania, all the way on the other side of the state, and the rates could possibly go up here because of that.
So, Martin, the
QC,
typical, right? Yeah. So your hypothetical,
right?
Typically, if it were a system near ours, the commission would look to us as the state's, one of the state's leading utilities to help take that over.
Okay.
So it would be proximity, but generally speaking, it's it's going to be a comparable to the Regal Oaks situation, smaller, people in a bad way because the investment wasn't made or the owner can't afford to do it.
Okay. That's all I have for tonight. I sent my other 10 or 15 questions in because I didn't get to talk last week or earlier this week.
Very good.
Okay, we have one more. We have one more hand up.
Is that a repeat?
It's a repeat.
We're at, yeah, go ahead and let Stephanie ask. We still have a little bit more time.
Okay, we have, is this Stephanie Rowe?
Yes, it's me. It's again, okay. I have a question. Evan's hand I see is up. Isn't he a resident as well? I know he's part of the media, but isn't he a resident?
He's not a resident of Upper Pottsgrove now.
Oh, he's not? Okay. All right. That was my question. I know this isn't comment time, but I do want to say I appreciate all the work that everybody has done and everybody is doing going through all of this crazy time. And this could very well be the best thing for our township. I just, again, want everyone to think about why we need to do this right this second, because there's no going back from Monday. And if I know other townships do these things and this, but this is the township we live in. And on our street here on the cul-de-sac that I live on, there are 6 families that are not part of Facebook there are 3 families that are first responders, and they had no idea that this was happening. And 2 of the families, they're both nurses, they're working tonight, so they couldn't be here. So I just really hope that you'll really think about if we need to do this right now, especially since we have another meeting May 20th that this could be looked at, and it could go on for there. So I apologize again. Thank you very much. And I know this is a crazy time and you've all done so much work for this, but just the rushing of it, I think, is in the not having as many people that could know about it because of what's going on in our world is, I think, what's probably the frustrating thing for a lot of people. Because this could very well be the best thing for us.
Thanks so much. Okay, so what we'll do for the timeline going forward, we will meet on Monday. What's going to happen is we'll have our special counsel, and we'll have our solicitor talk about the ordinance. We'll talk about the APA, the asset purchase agreement. We will then make a motion. We will get a second, and then we'll go through a whole piece of resident comments, and then we'll ask you to take it to around 3 minutes. And we'll rotate through the folks. Well, once we go through one rotation, then we'll go to a debate session with the commissioners, asking questions to each other and flushing it out. And then we'll take a vote on it. So we have one item on that agenda for Monday. So with that, Michelle, anything else?
I just want to add that if anybody has any additional questions or didn't get to speak, if you get them to me tomorrow morning, I can guarantee they'll get answers by Monday. But if I get them on Monday morning, I can't guarantee that they'll be posted before the meeting on Monday night. So I appreciate everyone's efforts to try to get me questions as soon as they can.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.